So we're going to be covering a lot of topics on today's show. I'm going to be basically going through certain things that we saw, some news updates, and also I want to talk about, for example, FAF du Plessis. There was recent comments or quotes that came out from him. I'm going to go through the article with you that someone put together. Aditya put it together for our website. And I'm also going to be chatting to you about the FTP because it's very important to see what our FTP is, who are next big games in the next year or so. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about our domestic setup and things that have happened over there. But it's going to be a show mainly about the news. I've put out a couple of polls as well about the FAF du Plessis topic, and we're going to be covering that. And I'll show you the different polls and the results that have taken place on Facebook, on Twitter, and there's also one over here, right here on Cricket Fanatics magazine as well, that I'm asking you guys to vote. So please get involved with a vote on Cricket Fanatics magazine as well on the YouTube channel, so that you guys can give me your opinion on what you think should happen with regards to FAF du Plessis. So that's going to be the main topics that we're going to be talking about on today's show. But before we get going, before we get started, please subscribe to this channel. Please click that notification bell for all future videos. We're on the road to 4,000 subscribers. We're only about 80 away. So please get your friends and family that are into cricket, that want to learn more about cricket, that want to join a community where you can discuss cricket in South Africa. Let them subscribe to the channel. Doesn't matter what level they are, what if they're a player, whether they're fans, etc. But this is a place to help educate fans, help start the conversation, giving you guys a voice to be able to talk about cricket in South Africa and talk about the difficulties, the changes, etc. So we're going to be giving you quite an interesting show. Remember, it's also a Q&A session, so you guys can also ask us any questions that you want in the live chat. Like I said, subscribe to the channel. I'd also like you guys to please download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. We are working on bringing you the next edition of the magazine. It's going to be a magazine that covers April as well as May. So we're combining the two editions into one. We've run into some problems with getting interviews on time, with people being in different parts of the country and in the world. So we've tried to bring it to you as quickly as possible and bring you a nice, concise magazine that gives you the review of the previous season and a look into the next season and what we can expect. I also want you guys to please support this channel, support what we are doing here, support the content that we are creating, as well as support the future of this company by becoming a Patreon today. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. It's as cheap as buying us a coffee a month, literally. So please get involved with that and become a Patreon today. Smash a like on the video, comment, and share, because that's how we get into recommended feeds. So please get involved there too. And go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your daily updates on cricket in South Africa. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. I'm looking forward to discussing this with you guys. A very good evening. Welcome to Cricket Fanatics magazine, and this is your daily show. I'm your host, Khalid Mohideen, and this is the show where we talk about all the major talking points in South African cricket. Now, there's a lot that I want to cover today with regards to various news, updates, etc., that has happened in cricket around the world. I think the best place to probably start with this is just to go through some of the news topics that have taken place. So I'm going to try and go as in order as possible. I'm going to start off with South Africa securing a couple of things that I think is positive for the future. Now, first and foremost, let me start with the broadcasting deal that South Africa sealed. So South Africa, or CSA, recently has continued, or that you could say they reinstated their deal with re-signed with the likes of SuperSport. Look over there. It is available to you guys there too. Um, so this is the what has happened recently. So Cricket South Africa and SuperSport have signed a broadcast extension until the end of the 2026-27 season. The new deal includes more coverage of the national women's games than ever before, with all inbound Proteas women matches set to be broadcasted over the next 4 years. In addition to the full women and men's international coverage, SuperSport will continue to broadcast up to 60% of the domestic matches across the men's Division 1. So this is very big and white ball competitions, including the finals of the CSA T20 Challenge and the One Day Cup. So I think this is a massive thing. Um, that they're going to continue to broadcast up to 60% of domestic matches, because we know that domestic cricket doesn't get enough coverage online or on social media. I mean, I think we are one of the best platforms that cover this in general. In addition to the full women's, men, and international coverage, SuperSport will continue to broadcast that as part of CSA and SuperSport's strategy to grow the reach of the game into new markets. It's been jointly agreed that CSA has the rights to produce and live stream non-televised domestic matches in its own digital channels. So that's very important too. So you guys want to watch 4-day cricket? I mean, obviously on the digital platforms, you'll be able to probably watch it there. CSA Chief Executive Officer Poletsi Moseke commented that we would like to thank SuperSport for the commitment to South African cricket over the years and their continued support during the next window that will run until the conclusion of the 2027 season. So there's some comments over here that you can read on Cricket Fanatics magazine dot cricketfanaticsmag.com. I'm going to get a little bit of help on the show today, so Aditya is going to be joining me. Welcome to the show, brother. I'm just going through some of the news things that have popped up over the last week or so that I wanted to talk about on this particular channel. So you can chime in at any point when you do feel that you want to just add anything. So I think this is pretty simple. Supersport obviously continuing extending their contract, and they said up to 60% of domestic cricket is going to be televised, particularly the finals of games as well, and more women's cricket is going to be televised. So what that has done for the women's team is that it will help them also get more tours. And there was breaking news in the week that South Africa has also confirmed, or Cricket South Africa has also confirmed, an Australian multi-format tour in Australia. So, following the blockbuster match between South Africa and Australia during the 2023 ICC Women's T20 World Cup final in Cape Town, the two giants of the women's game will go head-to-head once again, this time in a 2-3 match T20 international series and an ODI series, as well as the first ever 4-day test match between the two nations. So this is a massive news for South African cricket, Aditya. I mean, how much do you think that South African women obviously re-signing with momentum, as well as the SuperSport broadcasting deal, has boosted their chances of actually getting a full tour in Australia?
Yeah, I think that's always helpful, isn't it? Because as much as there is an effort to grow the sport of cricket through skill um, and just through the evolution of the game in terms of formats, the the commercial side of the game is also important, and we've seen that with Cricket Australia, they do tend to take that seriously because in the men's game, you look at the number of times that a Bangladesh test series or an Afghanistan test with Australia has been cancelled because to them it's they can't see the commercial benefit in it, and it's something
Mm,
that's sort of expendable. Whereas, would you ever hear of an India test series being cancelled in Australia? No, there's no way that's going to happen. So they
yeah.
do take it seriously, and the fact that there's the women's game, like the women's team is strong first off, so it produces competition, and there would be significant viewership in the stadium and on TV. If anything, look at the numbers that the last World Cup the Women's World Cup in Australia produced. Like there were serious numbers, and with each World Cup they're growing, and South Africa is obviously a force to reckon with in the women's game. Um, So that definitely played a part in the multi-format tour, and particularly the test. I think that's so important
Yeah,
because you know we generally watch women excelling at the white ball game, but they don't have a lot of opportunities to prove their mettle on in the longest format. And so to me, I think that's the like a birth test match is just serious stuff.
yeah. And I think it's going to be amazing exposure for the young ladies to feel what it's like to play Test cricket. And with this team now in transition, I would say, because a lot of the experienced players have now retired or left cricket or left international cricket, like Tane Fanikek, Marazan Kap soon to be, Shabnim Ishmael as well. So those are three big names that have left the game that I think will really incentivize the youngsters to put up their hands. So I think there's a lot of fringe players around that will be able to use that test as an opportunity to really put up their hand for the other formats, and it also teach them as well to play the longer format and be more patient at the crease, and that will improve their other formats as well, so the ODIs and the T20s. But I'll get into that a little later because I want to talk to you about something specific around T20 cricket. We need to have a little bit of IPL talk. But if you can just bring up the stats of the IPL on maybe on your screen, Aditya, so that we can just go through the South Africans that have really performed well. You can maybe read them out for me. Let's move on to the next topic. There's another major piece of news that came out this week as well. Actually, in fact, last week, and that is Wandile Guavu from the Lions, the Lions coach, who was pretty successful, won quite a few trophies with the Lions. He was appointed as the white ball fielding coach. Now, I saw a lot of backlash on Twitter about who is this guy, where did he come from? Well, first and foremost, he's one of the a very successful domestic cricket coach for the Lions, and he will be going to he's- the 36-year-old who took charge of the fielding during South Africa's inbound limited to overs tour against the West Indies and Netherlands past summer joins Rob Walter's team on a full-time basis, a long-time batting coach JP Duminy. As head of the coach of the Lions since 2019, Guava was named domestic coach of the season in the first year in charge and has since led the Alpha team to 5 titles in 4 seasons, which is phenomenal. If you look at any resume, that would jump out. The most by the Lions as a coach in the history as well. He was also assistant coach to both the Josie Stars, to Enoch and Kwe, I think it was, and Mzansi Super League and Joburg Super Kings at the Betway SA20, and enjoyed the national spells with the SA under 19s and SAA side. Hailing from Cape Town and Kualanga, Guavu played age group cricket for Eastern Province and was part of the academy before he took up coaching. So we have a little bit of quotes over here from Enoch Nkwe, giving some thoughts on why they've obviously added him to the setup. It's going to be interesting to see, Aditya, how he goes about um, influencing the team, because I think it's not just from a fielding position point of view. What he would have learned from being a coach in the Mzansi, in the SA20, with the Lions winning 5 titles as well, I think he can add a lot of value besides just being a fielding coach. So I saw a little backlash because not a lot of people really knew who he was, but I think that they should put some respect on his name because I mean he's achieved quite a lot in South African cricket, and it's really showing us or me as a fan that what the message I get out of it is that the new coaches are really taking their time in actually picking players or picking managers, particularly, or picking coaches that maybe they don't necessarily have a direct relationship with, but rather who's best for the job, So, because I mean, Rob Walter hasn't really been in the country for many, many years. So, and as well, Conrad wasn't necessarily focused on domestic relationships more. I mean, from a coaching point of view, he was obviously very focused on the essay on his other jobs. I'm pretty sure he would have built relationships with them and spoken to these coaches as well in times. But I mean, his full focus wouldn't have necessarily been there in the camp listening and talking to these guys. So they know what their criteria is and they know what value they can add. So I think it's not just about the relationships with only picking people that are friends, or only picking people that they have a relationship with necessarily, which I think is something positive for the future. What's your thoughts on Guavo?
100%. And as you mentioned, he's done the hard yards in the South African system, and he's risen up the ranks. And I think that's important because oftentimes what happens is that we look for these. I think, and I guess all teams are guilty of it to a certain extent. Is that you look for these superstar coaches, right? You have the big names, and you feel like whether they'll win you trophies, or um, whether they'll just increase the profile of the team. But it's important. There are skills other than there are skills involved with any sort of position of instruction. Where you're in charge of upskilling a set of individuals, and I think that's important. So whether that's communication skills, whether that's tactical, or even cultural, for that matter. And these are important attributes. So um sometimes I feel like these are such useful appointments, and they really serve to benefit South African cricket well. A great example is, there's a coach in the IPL called Chandrakant Pandit. He's the head coach of the Kolkata Knight Riders. I think the only
Hmm.
well, and Sanjay Bangar. Okay, so both of these individuals, Chandrakant Pandit, he's won he's won the Ranji Trophy with Mumbai. He's won the Ranji Trophy with Vidarbha. He's won the Ranji Trophy with Madhya Pradesh, and he's had years of coaching experience. And so he has an understanding of pitches across the country. He has an understanding of cricketers across the country, of Indian talent, and he knows how to communicate with that talent, right? Now, I don't personally understand. I don't know his coaching style because this is his first season in the IPL, right?
Yeah.
But in the Indian system, he's done the hard yards. Similarly, Sanjay Bangar, he was a former Indian cricketer. He did a brilliant job with the Indian cricket team as batting coach, and now he's coach of
Hmm.
RCB, right? And what stands out with him, in addition to all the technical knowledge he's got, is that he's a calm personality. He's a very good communicator. Ask Faf du Plessis. They get along well. Faf du
Yeah.
Plessis, Sanjay Bangar, and Mike Hessen, the three of them.
Excellent. Yeah, so that's why I say, like, it's not only also about your criteria or what you have in your CV. It's also about what value you can add to the dressing room. So let's move on quickly. There's another piece of news that broke also recently from the ICC this time, and that is that the ICC has added changes to its playing conditions. So that's another thing that we should be talking about, I think, on this channel because it affects everybody. Um, so let me just read this out to you guys. The International Cricket Council has announced changes to its playing conditions after the Chief Executives Committee ratified the recommendations from the sort of Ganguly-led Men's Cricket Committee, which were also endorsed by Women's Cricket Committee. The main changes in the playing conditions which come into effect from the 1st of June 2023 with the Lord's Test between England and Ireland are: soft signal. Umpires will no longer be required to give a soft signal while referring decisions to the TV umpires. The on-field umpires will consult with the TV umpire before any decision are taken. Slight change, but it might speed up the process of things. Helmet protection will be mandatory in international cricket for following high injury risk positions: when batters are facing fast bowlers, when wicket keepers are standing up to the stumps, and when fielders are close to the batter in front of the wicket, which was kind of there already, but I mean, they're obviously putting emphasis on it. Runs off a free hit. Any runs scored off a free hit when the ball hits the stumps will count as runs scored. to be consistent with all other runs scored from a free hit. Interesting one. Um, and then there are some comments over here, of course, from sort of Ganguly. So your take on this, Aditya, I don't think is groundbreaking or breaking news necessarily. It's small little decisions that have been added or made, put emphasis on them.
Yeah, so actually, I think the soft signal has been quite controversial for a period of time, right? So I'd be interested to see how this new iteration would work, because the real controversy with the soft signal was that if if a ball hits the pads and the umpire gives it out, then I think if like 75% of the ball is touching the stumps, it's going to be given out. But
Mm,
if the same ball is given not out, then that decision would not be the same. So a lot of cricketers have sort of said that, and I think the classic case was the 2019 World Cup semi-final and final, where Virat Kohli was given LBW, who's out. Then I think in the final, same bowler hit Jason Rowe in the pads, pretty much the same spot. It was given not out and stayed not out. So
mm,
I think that's what a lot of the individuals who questioned the wisdom of having something like the soft signal on said that how can the ball land at the same spot on the pitch, hit the same spot on the pads, and on one occasion it can be declared out, and on the other occasion it can be declared not out. I think that's inconsistent. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see how that goes, because um I agree with that logic. I agree with that logic with LBWs, but I wonder what that would mean for catches,
mm.
because there will be times when the evidence is inconclusive, right? And so if a ball is if it's referred to the third umpire, then which side of the spectrum are you on?
Yeah. You kind of have to see it in action before you actually know if the rules are going to be working or not. Like if
Yeah,
VAR, for example, in football, like a lot of people were like, in concept, it seemed great, and then when it was implemented, there was a lot of uh, people complaining about it until this day. Every time they change the rules around and what is what, and it changes according to when you see it being implemented. Okay, so the next big breaking news was something that you covered for us, Aditya, on the website, and that is FAF Du Plessis. Um, he was obviously interviewed, and we've got the quotes on the site as well. Um, I knew about this already because we knew from Rob Walter that he said he was going to speak to FAF, but NDTV Sports interviewed him, and there's a couple of quotes over here from FAF Du Plessis. Those quotes are: I'm very grateful that the new coach has reached out to tell me that he would like me to be a part of the team at the moment. It's just a conversation to talk about where I am at physically. Now, I just want to talk about that part because that determines a lot. Um, because this is where we have those polls set up in what format you want to see him play. Um, do you want to see him in both white ball formats, none, or do you want to see him in only the two formats or only in one of the formats? So that's where that physically part of him mentioning that particularly I'm highlighting. But let's move on to some more quotes. He says, I've been struggling with a tennis elbow for a few years now. I've had some injection into it. Um, in addition, he said that it's a conversation where I feel like you got to look at the balance of where I am at physically, emotionally, and mentally. Right now, that balance is really good. He went on to say that at times when I feel my body is getting sore and achy, there is that there is that rest and recovery period. T20 cricket is a format that allows me to play as often as I want. In contrast, in 50 over cricket, it's a different story. Obviously, a longer format, you're on the field a lot more. We'll cross that bridge after the IPL, moving into the latter part of the year. You also said more than anything, we've spoken about the T20 World Cup next year in July, which is something we both want to make happen. That will be the focus point. Okay, so what I want to bring up right now is the poll results of this particular question. Before we get into our opinions and what we think, I just want to bring up the poll results when it comes to this particular matter. Um, Let me just see if I can bring it up on the screen for you so that I can show you the different social media platforms that we posted this poll, and then we can really have a look at what fans across the board have thought about this particular topic, bringing Faf du Plessis back to T20 cricket. So please follow us on Facebook as well, guys. You can see over here, this is our Facebook page. We're doing pretty well over here. We've got 19,000 followers, 17,000 likes on this page. So please follow us here because there's a lot of conversations happening. But this is the poll that we ran. There's been over 118 votes on Facebook. And the question was, should CSA bring back Faf du Plessis in the white ball cricket? Now, I gave a couple of options. I said only 50 over cricket, only T20 cricket, both formats, and no format. 66% of them said that they want Faf back in both formats. Only 24% wanted him back in only T20 cricket, 1% only in 50 over cricket, and 9% of people have said no format. That's the Facebook poll. Let me go to the Twitter poll as well, so that you guys can also have a look at what people have to say on Twitter, and what they voted there. Before me and Aditya get into a little bit of a discussion on where we think he should come when it comes to this particular when the different formats. So on Twitter, it's just loading because it's interesting because I made some opinions myself on this matter. I had my own opinion about this matter. You can see a clip actually on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook as well, where I gave my thoughts on it. But this is what Twitter had to say. 116 votes on Twitter. Um, 37.9% are saying cricket, T20 cricket only. 44% are saying both formats. 8.6% 50 over cricket only, and 9.5% says no, they don't want him back. So, what this tells me is that there's been pretty much the same type of reaction no matter what format I went to. Because even on YouTube, when I go to the YouTube account, um, I see that Klaasen just scored 100.
I was just about to tell you that he just got it off for six, 103 or 49 balls.
Excellent. That's brilliant. That's why I said white ball cricket is that guy's specialty. He's been doing excellently there. Before we get into the live chat and what you guys are saying on YouTube as well, similar results. 67% are saying T20 cricket though, 22% are saying 50 over cricket, 11% for both. Now, what does that tell me? So it's been a little bit crazy right now. Faf is the top scorer in the IPL currently. He's doing really, really well. And a lot of people are saying because the 2023 World Cup is in India, we should have Faf because he understands the conditions. Now, that contradicts what Faf said in his piece, where he spoke about the challenges that he might face by playing 50 over cricket because of his body and what his body can take. That's why I said we need to ask Faf about it. When I made my statement, I said I would like to see him back in T20 cricket, back in the T20 setup, back in the T20 World Cup, because I feel that he can manage his time, his rest as well with T20 cricket far more than he can in 50 over cricket. 50 over cricket is longer, it's longer hours on the field, it's more time away from the family, all of those type of things that is making him, allowing him to be able to still play cricket at this age. It gets taken away if he's going to be playing both formats, because then that means he gets to go on full tours for ODI and T20 cricket. Whereas a T20 tour can be a week away from the family or a couple of days, because we play like every 2 days in T20 cricket compared to playing 8-hour games every with a span of 2-3 days as well. The recovery time is going to be crazy for him, particularly with him talking about his tennis elbow that he's basically had recently as well. So he's getting older, he's a little bit more delicate. But as you can see on the polls, I mean, on Twitter and Facebook, there's an alarming amount of people that are saying both formats. Does that seem um logical to you, Aditya, that Faf du Plessis can suddenly come back after not playing any 50 over cricket or long format cricket, and then suddenly this come and play a World Cup in a 50 over competition? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so actually, before we talk about the details of what Rob Walter and Faf said, excuse me, we need to get into why these comments were made and why Faf issued those clarifications. Because he was asked this question at another time during the IPL as well, and he said that we'll cross this bridge when the IPL ends, right? And he said this to Crick
Hmm.
Plus. Here's the thing: the reason this conversation is happening now and why he's talked about it in detail is because he knows that a similar situation had taken place in 2019 when AB de Villiers was rumored to be interested in making a comeback for the 2019 World Cup. And that created a whole media circus, which Faf wanted to avoid straight out. And I laud that communication. I think that's so important because right now, what that interview has done is that it has told us exactly what his status is. So I think that's very useful. That's the first thing.
Hmm.
Secondly, I think we're talking about whether he should be in the 50 over team or the 20 over team, right? So we have to take the tennis elbow situation into consideration because
Yeah,
a tennis elbow is an awkward injury, and he's managing it right now. Uh, but I remember when Sachin Tendulkar had got a tennis elbow in I think about in late 2004, early 2005, and I think he got operated on it. He
hmm,
couldn't hold a bat for a
yeah,
period of time. Like he was out of the team for 9 months, and he made a return to the team towards the end of 2005, but he was nowhere close to his best. Like it took him about 2 years to get back to his best from that tennis elbow injury.
madness. Yeah.
So it takes time, and we don't know the extent of Faf's injury. Because let's be real, right now with the tennis elbow, he's smacking 115-meter sixes. Can you imagine what would happen if he didn't have that tennis elbow, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, we what we don't know right now is what his plan of action will be with respect to treatment. Because
Mm.
if he feels that the tennis elbow can be managed, then personally I'd like to see him in the 50 over team. Because
Yeah.
right now
Okay.
right now, just the other day, I think who was having Ricky Ponting was talking about the 50 over World Cup later this year, and no one was even giving South Africa a chance, you know. And I think that's a bit of a problem because when you have a match winner in there, and I still think that the 50 over format is his strongest format, despite his despite his results in T20 cricket right now. I think it would be interesting to see how that goes. But having said that, obviously he knows his body best, and
Mm.
he understands his injury as well. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think it will be easier to shuffle people around in the T20 than the ODIs, in my opinion. There's a settled opening partnership at the moment between Temba and Quinny in the 50 over format. Do you disturb that to bring Faf in as an opener? Then in number three, maybe you can play him there, maybe. But Rassi van der Dussen is the highest average in South African cricket at the moment. So do you drop him there? Then you come to the fourth position and fifth position. We've got David Miller and you've got Aiden Markram who can bowl a bit, who's really improved his white ball 50 over form recently. So do you drop him there because you can add a little bit of value with the ball, gives you an extra all-rounder option. Then you've got Klaasen that is playing the way Klaasen's playing currently in the IPL now, as you can see. Two massive scores on the bounce almost, really showing his capabilities with the bat and why they should have been picking him right through this tournament, maybe. So like those type of things are, are, are things we have to think about. Then we have David Miller, who some people say should bat higher up, you know. So it's very interesting. Um, to see what we're going to be doing. But obviously, it's clear that Rob has spoken to Faf. That is the thing that I'm taking out. That is the major positive that I'm taking out of this, is that Rob is communicating with players. Unlike before, there was no communication that took place, and
Yeah.
things would break down and things would leak out, and there would be rumors, and then people would believe it and not believe it. So I'm not so sure, me personally, how fit he is for ODI cricket, being the fact that he hasn't played a lot of 50 over cricket. I mean, you have to condition yourself for the particular format too, I think. It's a lot easier to condition yourself for T20 cricket than it is for 50 over cricket or test cricket. It's, and also with regards to where he is at personally in his life, where he feels he's comfortable too. So that also comes into play when it comes to that.
The thing is, like for me, going into a tournament, going into a tournament, I feel like current form is so important, right? And my main worry for South Africa right now is that Quinny can still improve his ICC record a fair bit. I think we can all agree, right?
Yeah,
And I think Temba is playing his first 50 over tournament World Cup. He was selected for the 2019 World Cup, but I can't recall if he played games.
I don't think he was. I don't even think he was selected for 2019
He
World
went
Cup.
to England. I think he did go to England.
Oh, I don't even remember that. I remember that it was Amla was Riza. No, wait, Riza missed out for Amla, I think, in the last minute.
Yeah.
AB de Villiers pulled out. They were gonna sign him, get him, and then he pulled out FAF du Plessis, Quinny, David. I can't remember actually if Timber was there or not. It's a long time ago, and I was going through my own things with trying to get to the World Cup. It was a whole bloody drama situation.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so
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 it will be his first
yeah.
tournament that he actually he's captain as well. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on him too.
Yeah.
And I can
So
understand
that's
how that experience from FAF can actually take off some pressure from him. You know.
so like to me that's my concern because we have to look at current form going into a major tournament, right? So we need to look at Quinton's form. We need to look at Temba's form, Rassi van der Dosen, because if you don't have a top three putting runs on in India, given how ODI cricket has also changed, it's become the sort of format where you start knocking bowlers out of the park from ball one, isn't it? So when teams are typically scoring 320, 340, South Africa don't want to be that sort of team where they're scoring 250 and 260, and that puts extra pressure on the bowlers to defend
Yeah,
these scores on small
that's true.
grounds and in conditions where there will be a dew on a lot of grounds. So to me, that's my concern with South Africa.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about India, because I mean the IPL is very important for many. I mean, I'm not a big fan necessarily of the IPL. I'm just going to be frank with everybody. I'm not. It's entertaining to watch now and again. I see it as purely entertainment, and I follow the South Africans generally and try to watch them when they do play. So it's not necessarily a tournament that I follow religiously and crazily. That's why you don't see a lot of content on the IPL on this particular channel. You'll see SA20 stuff, yes, because I'm invested in it as a South African tournament. But let's talk about India, because what I've noticed, and from speaking to some cricket people too behind the scenes, is that batting pitches to a degree have been prepared ultimately in this tournament. I mean, the IPL, the batters are really the ones that are really shining in this tournament, and swing bowlers and spinners in particularly in this particular year's IPL so far. Um, I mean, in general in T20 cricket, it's quite well known that medium pacers or slower bowlers are the ones that really stand out, because that's why someone like Sam Curran can be the top um, um, the highest bid player, because I mean he's not necessarily an Andrew Nokia. And if you look at the faster paced bowlers, the blitz 150 plus bowlers this season, they aren't the one that are topping the wicket standings necessarily. It's a lot of the swing bowlers are the ones that are really standing out. Like, I mean, even Wayne Parnell's having a good tournament so far. I mean, if I look at the list over here that I can bring up on the screen, let me just bring it up for you guys. Um, on the top wicket takers in the tournament so far. Let's see if it can load here and I don't mess it up.
It's five. So in the top five, it's four of them are spinners. Only one of them is a pace bowler.
Yeah, which makes total sense, especially with the way that batters are approaching it. Because in T20 cricket, batters are going to come out, and why I say that spin bowlers, swing bowlers are very difficult to play against is because, generally speaking, T20 specialists are not necessarily playing first class cricket. That's a type of format that really teaches you how to be patient, teaches you about ball movement, etc. All of those type of things, right? So you're not as familiar with that. Your technique is not necessarily conducive to be able to switch it up and change within a game. Whereas batters like Faf du Plessis, for example, if you look at the top batters in the tournament so far, guys like Faf du Plessis, um, that I think his technique is spot on. I mean, Shimnam Gill is just phenomenal talent. I think he's an all format type of player. I feel in the future. Um, Conway, who's doing really well as well. Very strong base in Test cricket and four-day cricket. Virat Kohli, very strong base in four-day cricket. David Warner, who was spoken about first class cricket now, it can help him, very based in four-day cricket. So those are like some of the top batters in the tournament so far. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think that's a coincidence at all. It's guys that are very based in the longer format, can play swing a lot better because they see it more. They have to adapt to it much quicker. Opening batters specifically, guys that have faced the new ball in Test cricket and longer formats, they are a little bit more conducive, or they're a little bit more easier to adapt to that things. But do you agree that the wickets have been pretty much batters' paradises, or not batters' paradises, but batters' wickets, or favor the batters in this particular tournament? Can you agree on that? Because I think that's also partly why so many spinners take wickets as well, because the guys that are going to try and hit the ball and go for it are going to get caught, or going to get caught out, or going to miss time deliveries, because it's obviously much more conducive, I think, personally, for batting. What is your thoughts on that, Aditya?
So it depends on when the game is played. A lot of there are a couple of things,
That's
right?
true
So one
too.
is uh, the games that have been played at night have been like the 7:30 start. That's been the time when games have been batter friendly, high scoring. You compare it with day games, you play in the heat that typically tends to dry out the wicket, and it's not as easy to score 200 plus in a day game. So that's one. The other thing is that there are certain squares in the country that have red soil pitches and black soil pitches. So whenever
Okay.
games have been played on black soil pitches, they've been low scoring games, to the extent that games under 130, I mean, sorry, scores under 130 could be defended. RCB defended 126. So, and that was a night game. So that's another consideration, right? The other thing is that the impact player rule that the IPL has introduced this year has meant that depending on the current situation of the game, teams can potentially add an additional batter into the lineup by substituting a bowler. So if you're let's say you're chasing 220 and you're 100 and you're 120 for three, and you really need to up the ante, you introduce the impact player and you try to get a move on. So um, that has contributed greatly to the high scoring nature of the tournament. And Faf du Plessis has benefited from that in two of those games as well, because remember, he was injured. He had an intercostal muscle tear, and he couldn't take the field for 3 games, but he was used as an impact player.
Mm.
So he batted, but he didn't field. And he got, I think, in two of those 3 games that he was an impact player, he got He basically scored match-winning 50s.
Yeah. So my question to you, Aditya, actually is from based on what you've seen in this IPL, because this is an excellent question from Lawrence, and it was something I was going to ask you anyway. Won't the wickets in India be better around October, November for the World Cup? I mean, do you think that we're going to get spinner-friendly wickets as we think in that World Cup, where we
Honestly,
have to pick two or three spinners to win a match? You know what I mean?
so I think that again, in an ICC tournament, the ICC manages the wickets, right?
Yeah.
So like they did in England. So back in 2019, up until the World Cup, we were seeing games where teams were scoring 400, 450. England once even scored 480.
Yeah.
So in the lead up to the tournament, everyone felt like 350, 400, 450 would be would be scored virtually every single game. But
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the actual results of the World Cup, 230, 240, 250 were also winning scores.
Mm-hmm. Depends also
And
what where they played, what the weather conditions were, prior to the games. Like I know there's certain games that were rained out as well. So in
yeah,
India, are we going to have that disparity with regards to different areas that they play in that time
I
of the
do
year?
think so. I think so. I think so. Because I mean, even right now, if you look at two venues, look at Ahmedabad and you look at Lucknow.
Okay.
Okay, on the red soil tracks, the average score is close to 190.
Mm.
On the black soil wickets, the average score is close to 135. So
That's highly on
it
that. Yeah.
depends entirely on the size of the ground and the nature of the square, because India is India is trying to have that diversity in terms of the
Mm.
wickets that they prepare.
Yeah. So that means South Africa, Rob Walter, emphasis on having a balanced side where you can switch things up, where you can pick according to conditions. Because, like I said, always on this channel, that reading conditions, being able to look at the ground, look at the wicket, knowing what type of players are going to prosper on that particular wicket in that particular ground is very important. And also picking players on form so that when they come out to the middle, they can actually produce for you. They're not still trying to find their way through a whole tournament.
But it's also adaptability, isn't it? Because again, we can take Faf du Plessis' example here. There have been innings. He scored 750s in this tournament so far in
Yeah,
11
it's
innings, I think,
ridiculous.
12 innings, right? Just insane, right?
It's
And
ridiculous.
there are some innings where he's gone completely berserk, right? Where he's scoring, his strike rate is like 180 or something, right?
Hmm.
He's gone completely berserk. But then he also scored a match winning 44 or 40 against
Mm.
LSG when RCB defended 126. And when he was batting on the pitch, he had said to Virat Kohli and the rest of the team, he said 135 will be a winning score on this wicket. He said 135 is a winning score on this wicket. They scored 126 and they won the game by 20 odd runs. So you need smart cricketers who are adaptable, who can leave the ego at the door. Because if you look at what happened with the Rajasthan Royals against RCB again, Rajasthan Royals, they tried to go on a slow pitch, on a difficult pitch. They tried to go too hard in the power play and they were 59 all out. That was the sort of wicket, that was the sort of game where you preserve wickets and you try to take the game deep, because that's when you'll win. So I'm still not convinced. I'm still not convinced with this slam bang approach.
Mm.
I don't believe that that's the way to go. I still
I
feel
also
like
don't.
I still feel like adaptability is still the name of the
That's
game,
key. That's
and the best
100%
players
the
in the
name of the
game
game.
are still adaptable, because you are
And that's
not
what
going
makes
to
cricket so brilliant. It doesn't matter.
exactly.
Like that's why I think what cricket is so brilliant is because no matter how much you change your approach or your mentality on how you approach your the style you want to play the game, the conditions, Mother Nature, Mother Cricket comes back and says, humbles you again. So
Yeah.
adaptability is more the thing, because even the great England, I mean, I watched them come to South Africa, and they tried to go gun ho, and then they realized early that that wasn't going to work, so they changed their style and then went gun ho later. So it's to be able to switch between the two when it's necessary, according to what the pitch and the conditions obviously present to you.
And that's why this IPL has been so brilliant, right? Because on the one hand, on the one hand, I think the first 50 games, over 30 games witnessed scores of 200 plus. But in those 20 games that did not witness the 200 plus scores, Gujarat managed to defend 128, RCB managed to defend 126.
Hmm.
And that's a reflection of the skill of batters who succeeded on those pitches. It's also a reflection of the bowlers who made use of those conditions.
Yeah. So, yeah, guys, I think we summed up a lot of topics, different news stories for you guys on today's daily show. Tomorrow, we're going to be, well, I hope that he confirms it. He has confirmed that he'll come on, but I hope that nothing pops up because he's a very busy man. But tomorrow, I'll be interviewing Grant Morgan on on the channel to get a sense of what it's like for him to have obviously qualified for the Division One and what his plans are for the future. So that's going to be our 7 o'clock show tomorrow on the Daily Show. Aditya, thanks a lot for coming on the show. To all the fans and out there, please don't forget to do a couple of things for us right now. Is that's first and foremost, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell for all future videos. Don't forget to also smash the like button, comment, and share. And download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. You can also help us by becoming a Patreon today. The link is on the screen in the description. Support us, guys. It's like a coffee a month. So please get involved, guys. There's not a lot that we're asking for so that we can keep doing the content that we are doing recently. And go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all the articles we showed on the show and for other articles too as well. Um, Everybody, we're going to be doing more shows next week. I'm going to be planning a whole week of shows for you guys. I'm going to sit down and actually categorize them in different talking points. DM me on social media or tag me on Twitter if you want any specific topic to be covered, and I can focus the show around that. We'll also bring you a Q&A show where you can ask us questions as well. Thanks a lot, Aditya. Thanks a lot to everybody for watching. And I'll see you guys again tomorrow with another daily show exclusive interview. Peace out, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening.